In about 3 weeks, XPeng Motors is going to release a software update over the air for XPilot 3.0 and now include their NGP, Navigation Guided Pilot, which is their version of Tesla's Autopilot. Ahead of that launch, they got together a group of journalists and they offered like a media drive with a beta version of the NGP and in their XPeng P7 long-range sports sedans. This happened a couple weeks ago. I was invited to the event, unfortunately couldn't make it because of COVID travel restrictions, but I did have two colleagues of mine, Mark Andrews and Jeff Teng, attend the event, record video of them driving the both vehicles, and then at the end they compare their notes. Early in the day, they got to drive the XPeng P7 with the beta version of NGP, but then XPeng brought Model 3s over so they can then drive the same route with a Tesla Model 3 on Autopilot, which is why I'm standing in front of my 2021 Tesla Model 3. So the journalists could then take a look at them, compare them, and then talk about which system was better, what functions work better on each system. So we're going to be able to bring that to you here today. It's not going to be me. It's going to be Mark and Jeff. Most of it is Mark, but then the two of them at the end are going to talk and compare notes. I think it's a worthwhile video. It's a little long. I edited it down as much as I can, but it's still going to be a long video because there's a lot of driving and a lot that they talk about. So, you know, but I definitely think it's worth watching. Now, you may remember I was actually the first person to drive the P7 on North American soil about 4 months ago. XPeng brought one to the US when they had their New York Stock Exchange listing like daily event. And I was able to drive one there right after the company went public. I was very impressed by the P7. I thought it drove really great. You know, it's probably maybe not quite on the level of some of the legacy automakers today, but it's right under it, and they're getting close to being really able to compete on the world stage, in my opinion. Car drove great with these updates now and navigation guided pilot. The P7 is really going to be able to go head to head with some of the world leaders, in my opinion. And, you know, while it's only available in China now and some European markets, I think XPeng has their sights set out on global scale distribution at some point in the future. We'll have to see about that. So for now, I'm going to hand it over to Mark and Jeff. They're going to drive the vehicles. You're going to be able to compare the both and judge for yourself which one acted better, which one was a more polished system. But for first, don't forget, please click the subscribe button and tap that notification bell so you don't miss any upcoming content here on State of Charge.
For around a century, there has been little change in the car buying process. You would go to a dealer, you would select your car, what features it had, and you'd collect it, and then you'd drive home. And from that moment on, the car wouldn't change. That, however, is changing thanks to OTA, over-the-air updates. Now the car can change. It would be easy to think that those changes were just limited to things like the navigation system or the voice assistant. But with companies like XPeng, that is actually not the case. It can actually do things like how the car performs. So in June last year, there was an OTA to the P7. And what that did was added software for the X pedal. This increased the range, the driving range of the P7 by between 10 and 18 kilometers for most of the models. That's 6 to 11 miles. So what it did was added the X pedal software, which was already available and in use on the super long range version, which does 706 kilometers and got so many headlines, but it added it to other cars in the P7 family. And now we're going to experience one of the most exciting OTAs yet. This car is about to get another update with the NGP, Navigation Guided Pilot. These will come online in February, before the Chinese Lunar New Year. And we're here to actually experience an early version of that software. So right here we're doing an NGP test. So that stands for Navigation Guided Pilot, the new system from XPeng, which is an autonomous driving capability which is about to go online next month for drivers of the P7. Now, we're driving on the highway around Guangzhou at the moment, and we're just slowing down because we're going past an exit, and in fact it's about to merge into another lane, and we're going to change to a different highway. This is all being done automatically. I've just got a very, very light grip on the steering wheel currently. If you notice, it slowed right down to about 60, which is perhaps a little bit unnatural compared with a normal driver. However, what is noticeable, I was sitting in the back earlier, and I think when you sit in the back, it is often one of the best ways to actually experience how driving is. And what's amazing is how smooth the system is. It doesn't feel jerky. Often in the back, you might get bumped around, thrown around by how a driver is driving. And that simply doesn't happen with the NGP system. Oh, it just warned me because I had one hand off the wheel. Doesn't like that. So it will warn you at times that you have to keep your hands on the wheel, and this is not something where you can be reading the newspaper or whatever when you're actually driving along. You do still have to pay attention, but it is really driving itself. I'm not making any inputs at the moment with the pedals, with the steering wheel whatsoever. I've got my feet off the pedals and I've got my hands lightly on the steering wheel. The car's just sensed that actually it can go faster. It's doing this in two different ways. So it has high definition mapping system, which is giving it a lot of inputs in the further away information. But it's also got sensors all around the car. So you've got a total of 14 cameras, 12 ultrasonic sensors. So you've got both imaging and radar sensing. So it's a dual system for sensing the surround environment. But you've also got on top of that the high definition mapping system, which is providing inputs for further off obstacles, further off road conditions. Okay, what's interesting there is it was actually going slower than the speed limit. It was going at 85, whereas the speed limit was 100. And it wasn't actually choosing to change into the inside lane to overtake the car in front. So I just actually overrode it by using the turn signal and went into the lane. It then made the maneuver itself, and we're now in the inside lane and driving at about the speed limit. So the speed limit's 100, we're driving right now at 99. And we're coming up to an obstacle here, and it's actually slowing down to 80 because it senses we're coming up to a tunnel and the speed limit is 80 in the tunnel. And it's just said that it's going to turn on the lights of the car as well because it's going in the tunnel. So even though I overrode it just now with the right signal, it is still now in NGP. We just did an interesting maneuver just now. The car behind us, it considered was too close, even though we were trailing a truck that was going quite slowly. Perhaps a more aggressive driver could easily have done the maneuver, but it chose for safety's sake not to make such a maneuver. And when the car behind us dropped a little bit, it then automatically indicated and made the maneuver. It's just warning me again that one of my hands is off the wheel.
You could move it a little.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so override it, okay. What I think is quite amazing actually with this system is just how smooth it is. With some other systems I've driven, you detect quite a lot of micro movements of the wheel, and I would say that a lot of them are unnecessary. This is much smoother, like an experienced driver reading the road conditions and making the minimal amount of movement on the steering wheel. And we're now speeding up because the car in front has sped up, and we are now cruising at 99 where the speed limit is 100. It's interesting that it chooses to go just under the speed limit. It's quite a cautious driver, this one. What's actually quite interesting with the system is how integrated it is. So you've got data coming in from the map, and I'm guessing that is also perhaps getting some over-the-air information as well, possibly, I'm not sure. But also you've got the sensors on the car itself, and so it's all making decisions for you based on those inputs. And perhaps that's also partly due to how the car has been constructed. So there is what's known as SEPA or SEPA, which is Smart Electrical Platform Architecture, which has a neural network built into the platform, into the chassis. And so it's like a sort of way of feeling what the car is doing. I think one thing that's also noteworthy is the graphical interface is just really, really clear, and it's smooth, the way it actually presents information. It's really quite something. You've got the two screens, unlike in the Model 3 where you've only got the one central screen. You've got actually a proper instrument panel and a separate infotainment screen. And you've got the essential information here on the instrument panel, but you've got more detailed stuff currently being shown on the infotainment system. So we've got a more detailed map with all the lanes, etc., and showing cars in front and at the side and all sorts of things. So this is really quite noteworthy. So we're now getting to this roadwork. So it's showing up all the traffic cones at the moment. And this is one important function that this NGP system has. It's got traffic cone recognition. And not only does it recognize it, but it actually deals with it as well. And right now, what was a 3-lane road has been divided into essentially 1.5 lanes. And we are still driving at 78 kilometers an hour. It has slowed down because obviously it is a more tricky situation. It's more dangerous, and quite honestly, any driver should slow down in such a situation. But it is handling it remarkably well. We're coming into an interesting situation. It looks like we're about to exit the highway, and we're actually changing highways. Okay, I thought we were actually exiting the highway, but I'm wrong. We're actually changing to another highway. And again, this is doing it all by itself. Now, it's going 60, whereas most of the cars around us are going considerably faster. But, I mean, as I said, this drives like a very safe driver. And it does tend to maximize the speed where possible, which some drivers might not do. So I think probably it averages out. So, okay, yes, it might be slower in certain situations. And, right now we're merging into the new highway. It did that automatically, put the signal on and change lanes. And now we're changing lanes again. Off we go. Yep, here we go. Right. And yep, it senses there is a car in the outside lane. The car was actually hooting at us there because it thought we were going to go into the outside lane, but I don't think we were, because it was showing on the blind spot warning indicator. Okay, and we are now going into the outside lane, and whoa, off we go. We are speeding up. Now, there are still roadworks here, but it's going at 100. Yeah, it's going 100, which is the speed limit. What I should point out about the NGP system is what we're driving is the beta version, although the functionality is very similar to what will be launched next month, and it's going to be launched apparently before Lunar New Year. So in February.
即将向左超车。
And we're about to change lanes again. It's decided that the truck in front is going too slowly,
请注意右
and we can go faster in this lane. So what it's trying to do is actually maximize the speed that is possible in a safe manner. And so it's trying to get you in to your destination safely in as quick a time as possible. It's now slowing down as the cars in front it's detecting are going much slower. And this is not a sharp braking process, it's a very smooth process. It's not deciding, oh my god, there's a car in front, I must stop. It's sensing, okay, the cars in front are going slower, I need to slow down a bit, and it's in a very controlled manner. We're actually going to change to a different highway in just under, well, it's about 1.6 kilometers now, and it's trying to get into the correct lane to actually change highway. So we've just gone from the outside lane to the middle lane. We're about to go from the middle lane into the inside lane right now. Yep, and here we go. So this is done with 1.2 kilometers to go before we actually need to exit. So with a lot of drivers, there's often a big panic that goes on when you get to near the actual proper exit because you're not in the right lane or whatever. But because of the integration between the navigation and the actual car and how it's operating, it knows when it needs to go off and it's really prepared. Now we're about to do a transition.
NGP.
So we're going to do a transition.
即将向右前方行驶。
Has it transitioned now
往
or not?
It will slow down very.
Yeah, it was slowing down. Right.
向右前方提前接管 NGP 即将
Okay.
退
Okay,
出。
turn
Okay.
Go to the exit.
Yeah,
manually.
it's going. I think it's doing.
It's 50.
Okay.
It's some,
Okay, now I need. Okay, now it's saying that I need to.
NGP 已退出。
Yeah. Okay, now it's saying that I need to take over.
it's still in LCC.
Oh, it's still an LCC. Okay.
In LCC. And later go to the. Then it will go to the
Right. Which one do we need to go to?
right. The right, the most right lane.
The right.
The right is the most
Right,
right.
okay.
Right. Okay.
辅助驾驶已退出。到达收费站，注意减速。
How do you like it, Mark?
What, the NGP?
You could.
Very impressive. So right now we're driving a Tesla Model 3 on the same route as we did the XPeng P7 earlier, and it started beeping at me for some reason, which I have no idea why it's beeping at me. And what's interesting is that already there's some quite big differences. Just now it asked me to change lanes. Equally, it doesn't just change the lanes by itself. I actually have to confirm with the indicator light or with an input on the steering wheel to make it do the actual maneuver. But it was asking me to change into the outside lane, and there was actually a car pretty much coming into my blind spot. It wasn't quite into my blind spot, but it was quite close. I mean, yes, we could have gone into the lane, it probably wouldn't have caused an issue. But had that car been going any faster, it was a potential problem. What is also noticeable is that you have to actually manually change the speed to set the speed limit, etc. The speed that you want to go to using a wheel on the steering wheel. It just doesn't have. The feeling is not as good as the XPeng P7. This generally does not feel as sensitive as an XPeng P7 with its ability to self-drive. But there's a caveat with that, in that this is a Chinese market car. Okay, this isn't actually a made in China Tesla Model 3, but nonetheless it is a Chinese model, and so it does not have the full FSD pack. and it has what's known as NOA, Navigation on Autopilot, so which is pretty much equivalent to the XPeng P7's NGP, Navigation Guided Pilot system, but generally just doesn't have as good a feel about it, certainly in my first few minutes impression of it. And also earlier I was a passenger in the car whilst another driver was using the system, and there were some situations, well, there were some situations actually where the Tesla did better, but there were equally some situations, in fact we had the same situation that occurred twice when it was coming to merging onto a highway, and it did extremely badly. We were sort of wondering whether it was even going to bother merging. It just did it at the last minute, and equally it was not speeding up to actually build up to the speed of the lane it was coming on at. It was just crawling along at a steady speed, and then at the last minute would just turn into it. We're now approaching a tunnel, and we'll have to see how it does through the tunnel. Well, it's obviously just worked out there is a tunnel coming up, and we're about to enter it, and let's see how it does in the tunnel. Now, it did not seem to notice, oh, wait a moment, it's not adjusting its speed. So,
It's out.
Wait, did you cancel it?
I'm doing this now.
Oh, okay.
Because it did not start adjusting its speed. It saw that the speed limit was 80, but it did nothing to slow itself down.
I think that was actually from the setting. So like, they have a setting where like the speed would go according to the speed limit, and I turned that off.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, because if we have that on, we would go at like 30 and you can go back to 40.
I think I've just...
Yeah, it's on.
It's on?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, it's just merging. Why is it beeping at me?
Because it thinks the speed limit is 60.
Okay, I have no idea. Just now a car pulled right in front of us, and the Tesla slowed down to let it have a safe distance. It's now actually asking us to go into the... Okay, I need to double
Did it just
confirm.
auto?
It actually just overrode it. It seemed to be doing it by itself just now.
That's good. Yeah, like I had a few successful attempts, but then
Right.
only a few. Let's see what happens afterwards. With the support on my back,
Yeah.
yeah, it doesn't seem like I have that feeling anymore. I don't know.
Right. But that was a few years ago, so...
That was a few years
and
ago.
now you're used to different cars, etc., so...
Yeah, maybe they have also. Maybe that was like an
Yeah.
optional package or something.
Why does it flash blue? What is that all about?
Punishment.
Oh, it's penalized me.
Okay, you got.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, okay, no.
Right.
You can't use NGP anymore for
I
the rest
can't
of this
use
thing.
it. Okay.
Oh, NOA.
You got a punishment.
Yeah, you got a punishment.
It hates me, this car. It punished me last night as well.
Yeah, give the blue alerts without telling you what exactly you want to do. So and
Right.
since the language is in Chinese, yeah. Okay, we just gotta drive back ourselves.
So much for the autopilot. Right. You have to suffer my driving instead.
Oh, this autopilot. What about P7?
I killed the autopilot.
Wait, what? So if we accidentally, didn't move the steering wheel, will P7 punish us?
Yeah, of course.
And then we will just not be able to use NGP for the rest of
Yeah,
the trip?
Yeah.
Same.
For the rest of the trip, you cannot use it. You have to, get out of the car, turn off the car.
Right, that's what we had to do
Shut up.
yesterday to reset it.
Oh.
But it's more obvious with the P7
Yeah, it's way more obvious.
that what it's asking you to do. I mean, I have no idea what a flashing blue thing is meant to mean.
Actually, we're ranking the alerts and the punishment. And we have 3 levels. The first level is just have to up, give you some beeping. In the second level, they're gonna have some vibration and give you really big red lights and some signals on the screen.
Yeah,
And-
well, it's got signals on the screen which shows
not
a
big
steering wheel and stuff like that
Oh, yeah,
in the
yeah.
P7.
Yeah,
But
you
this doesn't have anything like that.
And in the level 3, they're coming out together.
Yeah, they just have the blue lights and then that's
Yeah,
it. If you don't
just a flashing
care,
blue
and
light.
then
It's
you're
like,
gone.
What's that about?
And the thing is, blue light is not,
Blue light is not
not
meant for
catchy.
alarm. You gotta use red light.
and beeping all the time.
And just
Really
imagine if we have the traffic light as blue and green.
blue and green.
Yeah.
This is actually pretty bad.
Well, the P7 did very, very well here actually this morning.
Mm.
So the whole
Oh,
blue-
so he was talking about that. Did you intervene at all?
No, it did it
So
completely itself.
Which lane were you on?
Like
This
right
lane?
now.
Okay. Yeah. So he was saying like, it is possible that the P7 will be, driving right beside the,
Yes.
the wall,
Yeah.
and that would be pretty stressful if that was on that lane. It barely fits a car. So were you originally like, which lane were you originally on?
Before I came into this lane, I can't really remember.
So did it come to this lane because that he sees a block, or
I
You
really
were already-
can't remember that.
okay? So
We
I'll just
should
check.
be able to see from
Yeah,
footage
yeah.
whether that was the case or not. I have a feeling that was not the case, but I cannot say with that degree of certainty about it.
Okay.
You guys are talking about P7, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So from the strategy, if the strategy is going well, the first priority of
在2公里
the
后
lane
走
choice
左侧
is
P45
carpool.
广州
So
城
they
区
have
出
to go
口。
from the left. I mean P7 is
Yeah.
stay on the left lane.
Yeah, we're talking about the specific scenario for this roadblock.
Uh-huh.
So I was just wondering which lane the P7 was on before it swapped to this lane. Yeah. It has pretty smooth detection of the cones though.
Which, the P7 or this one?
This one.
Right.
I mean, they both, of course.
Yeah, both do.
Yeah. It's pretty annoying with the speed limit. We're on the highway. Don't
Yeah.
alarm me when I'm driving 80 when the speed limit seems to be detected as 60 somehow in the system.
Yeah. Not quite sure why it's doing that.
Their map is really not that good.
No.
Has 0 speed limit alert. That's one of the most important reasons why people use navigation. They want to know the speed limits, even on the
Yeah.
roads that they
Yeah,
are very familiar
that does
with.
help actually, yeah.
This one doesn't show anything.
Yeah.
Is it because of the setting? Let me see.
Yeah.
There's nothing.
When I drove in the US particularly,
Hmm.
the speed limit changes every few miles. And without having a navigation system, it would be extremely difficult to know what the speed limit was. Because in the UK, generally, on every road, unless otherwise, the speed limit is a certain limit. So essentially, on any open road outside a city or outside a town, the speed limit is 60 miles per hour, unless there are signs saying otherwise.
Yes.
If you're on a road like this, where there's 2 lanes in the same direction, then it'll be 70 miles an hour, unless it says otherwise.
17.
70.
70. Oh, 70.
And then if you're in a town centre or a city centre, and then it's 30,
Okay.
unless it says otherwise. So it's actually quite easy to know, based on the environment, what your speed limit should be.
Yeah, as long as there hasn't been a special speed limit
Yeah.
sign.
Yeah. I really don't like this just one central screen thing. I really have a problem with it.
Yes. Okay. I understand that the principle of design for Tesla is that they think you just need one central control board, and a lot of people complain about that. A very important thing is that when we're navigating on the dashboard for P7, we can directly see the routes.
Yeah, precisely.
And that is important. I don't want to always be looking at the central
Yeah.
control board. It's distracting me.
Yeah, precisely. All the essential information on the P7 is available to me right there. It's got the navigation prompts, it's got the lane things with what cars are in them when it's doing its NGP, and for the Tesla, I keep having to sort of glance there, which is really not a good place to be glancing. Okay, one thing that is good is that it is at least highly mounted high up, but still, it's not very good. Right, Jefferson. So we've just now experienced the Tesla Model 3, and on pretty much exactly the same route as we did the P7 this morning.
Yes.
So what are your impressions?
Okay, so Tesla Model 3, I actually tried it last night, and I was very impressed. Not until today I tried XPeng's NGP, which actually impressed me a little bit more. But there's some good stuff about this Tesla Model 3, their NOA, and there's some like really confusing parts, I could say. And the good stuff from my side is that I think they're really good at adjusting their adaptive cruise control. So like when there's a car in front of you slowing down, the auto speed adjusting is very smooth, it's seamless, and that is a good plus. And do you have anything in mind?
Well, what we had was the situation where we had that very sharp curve on the overhead pass.
Right.
And the P7 struggled with that,
Yeah.
whereas this car did very well.
Yeah, this car did very well. Like P7 went at a slower speed, but this car like went over a big curvature at the speed of 70, and it was like a knot. It wasn't just a curve, so that was very impressive. And the thing about this is that it always bothers me the most. It always asks me to double confirm when it tries to auto merge. And I wouldn't say that's auto merge. I feel like I was babysitting this car. It's like it makes decision for me, but it doesn't really do the move for me. There's no action items for the decision. So
It's
for me,
definitely less hands off.
yes, like I want to be like mind free. Like I want to be relaxing, but then it's essentially costing me like 120% attention to the NOA when I'm using when I'm driving on the Tesla with the NOA on. Yeah. What about you?
Definitely. I mean, I completely agree with you. And it sometimes makes strange decisions as
Yes.
well. And you experienced that twice when we were coming onto the highway. Do you
Yes.
want to talk about that?
Yeah, so when there's a big truck beside me, and I was on the leftmost lane, and then like all of a sudden it just stopped. It made a very strong brake for no reasons. There's nothing in front of me to stop me. So I guess the big truck kind of distracted the Model 3 a little bit. And the other thing was the auto merging logic, right? Like you experienced that.
Yeah.
You weren't a big fan. I wasn't a big fan either. So a good thing is that from the ramp to the highway, it successfully knew that, okay, now I should be going to 120 instead of 40. Okay, that's a good thing, but they knew it at the very end of the lane. When the lane was about to end, there's no lane anymore, and then it suddenly knew that. But it doesn't auto-adjust your speed like fast enough in reaction to that. That is not very localized. Like I could only say it's not very localized. I don't know how exactly what people think in North America about that logic.
Well, I think there was even more of an issue in that it just wasn't moving over and joining in the lane. And
Yes.
there was nothing in that lane we were
Yes.
going to merge into coming.
Yes.
So why was it taking right till the last minute to join it? We were there sort of thinking, is it going to do it or isn't it? Are we going to have to intervene or not?
Yes.
It kept us guessing until right at the last moment, and
Yeah.
I found that really strange.
Yeah, and another thing is that at the very end, like when I was trying to exit the highway, it didn't. So it recognized the highway, it recognized the exit. It was telling me we should probably moving. It actually didn't tell me we should probably move over. It just knew that this is the destination. Okay, we should exit. And I turned on the signal light intentionally because it didn't ask me to. Well, it should. and even after I turned on the signal light, it didn't go, like it didn't merge.
Yeah, that's right.
I was gonna miss my destination. I don't understand how.
Yeah. And there was actually one other issue I had when driving. In fact, there were two issues. One was where it was wanting me to go into the outside lane, and there was actually a car really pretty close. It could perhaps have done it safely, but I did not let it to do it because it just wasn't a very safe maneuver. The P7 is far more cautious when it comes to that sort of aspect, and this seems sometimes a bit more gung-ho in its way of overtaking and some of its maneuvering, but also equally it doesn't always seem as safe as the P7 in that respect. And then there was the issue I had with it in that it penalized me because it thought I wasn't giving enough input and it turned off the whole system.
Yeah, he actually got punished like 10 minutes driving in his term, so we couldn't really experience NOA for the entire 30 minutes. Yeah, but in conclusion, I think Tesla is still pretty good. Like, it has strong software, has really nice logic. Just, I wouldn't say it's as, like, I wouldn't say it knows the Chinese roads as well as XPeng does, just like how XPeng claim that they know the Chinese roads the best.
Yeah.
Okay, that's from my perspective.
There's definitely plus points and negative points, I would say, from both cars, actually.
Yes.
If you could merge them two together, you could create something that was almost perfect.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, I would say probably it still goes a little bit towards the XPeng.
Yes.
Basically, it's, as you said, XPeng knows the Chinese road conditions better. That
Yes.
seems to be the case.
And one thing that I missed was that their hardware equipment actually had actually wasn't that good compared to P7 because they lacked the ability of HD map together with the HD positioning. So
That's true.
that's not causing too much problems right now, but essentially, like, I knew that it performed better in the big curvature, but there might be some safety issue with XPeng's, like P7's concern. So they try to make it more safe, to make it more conservative when P7 is going through the big curvature. But I think with the hardware P7 is providing, it can do better than Model 3.
Yes.
It just didn't this time. But that's just our experience. For everybody else's experience, P7 performed way better in the big curve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's true.
Cool.
Yep. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mark.
Yep. Thank you, Jefferson.